next up, Jay Simmons, not Simons? Simon, sorry, is the president of Atlassian, who actually hosted our demo days a few weeks ago in San Francisco. Thank you very much. Awesome space. And Jay's going to talk about Atlassian on hitting $100 million without salespeople. Interesting. Jay, take it away.
All right. Hey, everybody. First of all, Dave, thanks for having us. We are a regular listener, first-time caller at unSEXY. And that was actually a perfect introduction to who we are as a company, because we also believe, as Jeff just stated, that software is taking over every industry, every company, and that every company on the planet, even the very, very, very unsexy ones, are becoming software companies. We provide collaboration software for software people, not just software developers, but software people. And this actually talk is about how software people think about the sales funnel and the sales model. I am the president of Atlassian. By background, I am a salesperson and a marketing person, but I am also very much a software person that thinks about how you can sell software and reach customers using software. So that's basically what the talk is about. Dave just covered this. Software's eating the world. Every customer, I think, that he mentioned in his deck uses Atlassian. Building software is really hard, and it is a very intense collaborative effort that involves a bunch of different people. When it works, you get these moments of triumph, like when the Curiosity rover landed on Mars. And there's a lot of engineering that went into that happening, but software engineering and software development, the software people that made that happen, were a huge part of that momentous event. Sometimes when it doesn't work, you get equally momentous events. This is the San Diego 4th of July fireworks display, I think a year ago, where the 1 hour fireworks show went off in 13 seconds. And again, it's almost better that way when you got kids. You don't think of a fireworks display as a software project. It is. Almost every major fireworks display is a software project. So there you go. That was one of the country's largest fireworks shows in 10 seconds. So that's what we do. We've got 27,000 companies worldwide that use our collaboration software with their software people, building software that changes their market, their industry, their company. So this is a little bit of the punchline for the talk, but this is a chart that the talk will explain. It's a real chart that describes an effect in our business and an effect of our sales model. So let that sink in, and I'll come back and explain what it is. Most of you, for enterprise software, the sales model is evolving. That's nothing new. There was an HBR survey of IT buyers of software inside of businesses, and basically the results of that survey said, well, now nearly 60% of the purchasing decision is already completed before engaging the supplier. And all of our companies in enterprise software are doing that. We're enabling a different type of approach where software is not necessarily sold, it's bought. And we're empowering the customer to make a lot of decisions and gather a lot of information themselves. So there's this shift from high-touch enterprise sales, where I started my career, to customer self-service and trusting that the customer can make decisions on their own without the very fine art of persuasion. In a traditional enterprise sales model, kind of works like this. The customer visits your site, they gather a bunch of info, the sales team engages, and then you hopefully profit. And the reason that you do this is you've got a lot more value control, right? And there's an instinct that says, I want to understand the customer's pain point. I want to qualify that pain point. I want to understand what they're trying to accomplish so I can articulate the value that I can provide to them. And there's no argument that when you do that, very, very good salespeople can increase the value. They can gain more value by understanding that problem and nuancing what they provide to the customer. The problem with that is there's also an incentive to introduce friction, right? And in traditional enterprise software models, you introduce friction. You say, I'm not going to show you the price for 3,000 users and more, right? Until I understand how big your problem is, and I can understand how much value I can exchange for solving that problem. I might not show you my pricing at all, right?
Very quick public service announcement. Folks, if you want to squeeze into the room, you can. If you can't squeeze in, the Galileo room over there is an overflow room that is broadcasting, so you can see and hear this amazing person from the other room. You don't have to hang out in the hallway, but if you'd like to try and squeeze in, please do. Please continue.
I had a really important point I was just about to make, and it's totally gone. I don't even know what this deck is about anymore. The other type of incentive that gets introduced is, in marketing, right? Because you want to qualify as early as you can what that customer wants, right? So if marketing writes a beautiful white paper that can influence, a prospective buyer, you put up a reg form and you say, I actually want to figure out who wants that white paper to begin with, so I can hand that lead off to a salesperson to sort of expand that value control. In a customer self-service model, it doesn't work that way. Right? The customer visits the site, you arm them with as much info as possible. As software people, you invest in a software product to do the selling, right? And there's a lot of trust built into this. Hopefully you profit at the end of that. So there's, this is not new. SaaS companies are sort of driving this way. They've been driving this way for a long time, where you're building a bunch of awareness about your product, you're convincing a prospective customer to try it, and then you're trusting that the software is going to do the selling for you. So it's changing, right? The old way, software, especially in the unsexy world of enterprise, was very hard to try and deploy. As a result, it was expensive. You've got this top-down, I want to persuade CIOs all the way through the organization, long sales cycles. The model's completely offline. The way we do it is we empower the customer to self-serve. So we invest a lot more in R&D than we do in sales and marketing. We consciously think about pricing, because that is part of the value equation. We make sure that it's really transparent. We try to enter bottoms up and expand through an organization. As a result, we have an online model that has a less than 90-day sales cycle. We didn't start that way, and it's very hard to be disciplined. So when we first started, right, like our founders and the group of engineers that were building our first products had to engage like really early on with prospective buyers. But they were really intent on not scaling that model out. They were really intent on figuring out whether they could build a sales model without selling. So really early on, they started to gauge customers, and customers said, well, you're an unknown quantity to me. I want to understand you. And what they did was they treated the sales funnel like a software product. They said, when a customer asks us a question, it's a bug, right? We want to fix it, right? That is a flaw in the model, right? Not an opportunity to engage. It's an opportunity to correct so the future customers don't engage the same way, right? So if I get a question, how do I put that question out where the customer can self-serve in the future? And the first 10 or 12 or 15, however many customers, it was always they were engaging. And back then we still had fax machines, I think. And so an order would come across the fax machine. Somebody would say he was working with company X, with Shell or with Texaco or with Goldman Sachs. Somebody would say, yeah, that was me. Okay, it's in. One day the fax machine bleeped. Somebody walked over and said, there's a 20K order from American Airlines, right? Who's got this one? And nobody said anything. And they said, hey, who's been working with American Airlines? And of course, they didn't believe that American Airlines had basically figured out how to try our product, had figured out where to send the PO at the time, because the model wasn't purely online, and had just sent it, right? So they, being engineers, they went through logs and they went through everything to try to figure out who had actually engaged. No one had. And it was the first real proof point to say, we can scale this. It's the first example of what we think will be many. And we're a 10-year-old business that has been working really hard on scaling. So numbers in perspective. This is the amount of Atlassian software that was sold on Wednesday, which is when I had to ship this deck. And I encourage you not to multiply that by 365 necessarily, because you can do that if you want. But you'll understand when I get to the end of the deck what that number means. Some other perspectives to the marketers and salespeople. So in terms of how much software we sell to new companies that have never bought software from us before, we get about 1.5 million uniques a month. This is a single month's worth of data, I think in June. From that 1.5, we generate about 15,000 new people that have never tried our software before that try it. From those 15,000 new trials, we sell about 3,500 new licenses in a month to about 800 brand new companies that we've never sold anything to before. And it is true that we don't have a single salesperson, right? We have people that we engage in this model. So for every trial, we send an email, an automated email that says, hey, if you need any extra TLC, right, you can talk to somebody. We're not idiots, right? If you want to talk to a human being and say, I want to know a couple of things, right, you can engage us. What we do is we don't say, What's your problem? How big are you? Are you a real buyer? Are you the budget maker? We don't care about. We don't give a shit about any of that stuff. We trust that if you're really going to engage, that you'll figure out whether or not the product, because we'll help you, solves your problems, whether or not it solves them with the right amount of value exchange based on what we've told you it costs, and you'll buy it. So there are three kind of key practical takeaways that I want to kind of leave you with. One is that if you are going to hire salespeople, make sure they can write their own SQL. That's what we do. So one is, think about friction reduction. And there's a lot of ways you can reduce friction. And there are a lot of the ways that you need to be disciplined about saying, I'm going to do that, right? The first is pricing, right? The first friction reduction opportunity is to say, I'm going to tell the customer how much this costs. Tesla does that, right? There's no negotiation on Tesla. They've said, this is the value exchange we're comfortable with. We're going to make sure that that's printed, locked in stone. Right? We're not going to deal with you or barter. We're not going to say if you want to buy 10 Teslas, you get a 10% discount, but we're not going to publish that until we understand whether or not you want a fleet of them. They just say this is the unit cost for that, right? Whether you've got 1 million of them, 10 of them, or 1 of them, that's what it is. We're comfortable with that. That's hard, right? Because you feel early on, I'm comfortable doing that for 10 users, but what if I really get to sell to Boeing? What if there's 100,000 of these? I'm not quite sure where that value, what I'm comfortable with. And that's usually the slippery slope that young companies fall down. So if you want to build a self-service model, you have to publish your price. You have to basically say to the customer, this is how much it costs. The other thing is, just like a lot of you probably do, you arm the customer with as much information as possible. There is not a single reg form on any Atlassian property except for the one that you fill out when you try our product, right? That's it. Every piece of information that we have, we want to democratize. We want to give to everybody, and we don't care necessarily of qualifying whether or not you're in some higher value segment that we want to take you down. So there's only one path, right? Every path is, let's tell you everything you might possibly want to know and convince you to try the software. And after that, the software's job is really to help convince you. So there's a bunch of things that you do. You make sure that customers know that they can get help. We include things like you can contact our CEOs directly. Make it very simple for people to ask a question. Make it really simple to explain the purchasing process, right? There's a lot of text here, but we want to help people understand. If you've got any question about how you buy something from us, right? People are lazy. They want to say, I just want to talk to a salesperson, have them figure it out. In our model, we basically try to answer the question in a self-service way and push people towards self-service. And then in the product, right, your product, you have to invest more in making sure the product is doing the selling. The product says, hey, welcome, new user that's never been here before. Here are kind of the 5 things that if I were to sit down with you and show you, mano y mano, these are the things I would show you that would help, if as a salesperson, would help convince you that this product is all that. So that's kind of the first thing. The second thing is testing and experimentation. Right? And this is going to sound like we've heard about A/B testing, and sure, every company tries to use data to incrementally improve. Testing is both a discipline and it's a mentality. And the only takeaway is start right now. You can get lazy and say, I don't need to worry about that until I get bigger. Everything should be a test. Everything should be how do I move inches right further down the field? Because testing is a game of inches. So, we do A/B and multivariate testing across everything, right? So we do it across our web. We do it across email. We do it in the product where we say, okay, with evaluators, when you say I want to create a new project, what if we give them a completely different screen? What effect does that have on convincing them to convert or on conversion itself? And, maybe not so obvious, we test with people, right? We say, hey, what happens if we have a human being call up and say, can I convince you to buy? Can I convince you to buy? Can I convince you to buy? What if we do the traditional sales effect, right? Do we get a higher conversion rate on a split group of evaluators? We let one go automated and one go, let's see if we can high touch them. The difference is if that group of salespeople achieve a higher conversion rate, we've got a bug in our model. And then we say, okay, what can we do to fix the automated? Right? Most companies would say, aha, I just proved salespeople have more influence on conversion. Let's hire a whole army of them. And then you've completely destroyed a self-service business. So we're always going to experiment with human beings and always experiment with a model. The difference is we say we've set a benchmark that engineering can beat now. The last one is faith. As a business, when we were really young, we hit $1 million, And people said, great, that's cute. You've got a self-service model that got you to 1 million. You won't get to 5. We got to 5. They said, you won't get to 10. We got to 10. They said, you won't get to 100. We got to 100. They said, you won't get to 1 billion. We say, bullshit. We will get to 1 billion. We will get to 1 billion, right? And there are so many opportunities to doubt. There's so many opportunities to say, I need a salesperson now, right? I'm going to introduce a reason to sell in a traditional way. And this, again, isn't, salespeople are very powerful. But this is an alternative, and there's also a way to think about marrying both. So back to the punchline. I think I'm going to gain some time here. This is what happens when you take salespeople out of a business. This is our intra-quarter bookings linearity, right, over the last 8 quarters, right? So what this says is if you've got 12 or 13, sometimes 13 weeks in a quarter, right? How do we book that quarter's business over the course of the quarter, right? You can cut wood to it. It is a straight line. You know, if you've been in enterprise software, what does this look like for most companies? Hockey stick, right? Like you're basically, you know, shitting yourself right here, hoping that it's going to hit a different trajectory. It's the truth, right? Every business. And what happens is you've got a lot of value control, you introduce a lot of friction, and you introduce a lot of uncertainty, right? And you might say, great, that's 8 quarters worth of data. You know, that's all kind of munched together. This is last quarter, all right? And if I showed you each of these 8 weeks, they would all be almost identical lines. And it's taken a long time to get here, a lot of discipline, a lot of faith, right, to believe that you can build a business in a different way and build a model, thinking about that model as sales or as software people. But that's our story. Thank you very much.